Okay, we're live, finally.
Okay. All right. Woo-hoo. All right. So, when did you know you wanted to be an artist? Like, at what age?
I've been drawing ever since I can remember, so yeah, from the beginning. As long as I can remember, so yeah.
Just kind of always. So, were you that little kid that was always like coloring and doodling and drawing and?
Yeah.
In that same sense, when did you kind of take an interest in graffiti and decide that was a way for you to express your art?
High school. Yeah, as soon as I got into high school, met somebody who was getting into graffiti art, and yeah, I just kind of like instantly, I was going through a rebellious period, so that appealed, as well as the bigger, more elaborate graffiti art.
All right. So, in the same lines there, who were like the crews that inspired you at that point, or was it kind of, I know like back in the day, Lourdes was kind of a new crew, so were you inspired by them, or was it like older crews and kind of the OGs, if it were?
Well, we kind of came up with our own crews before we even knew who Lourdes were, if I remember correctly. But definitely Lourdes crew was a huge inspiration. There was, back in the day, there was like SED and DSM were kind of like the other crews, and Pals was another one that was more just tagging crews. But yeah, I mean, once I got connected with Lourdes, those guys were like, we didn't hang out with them, and you know, there was kind of like that beef between those crews, because all the other ones were kind of like somehow intermingled, but Lourdes was kind of exclusive until like ALB was formed and some of those other
MHA.
Yeah, and JTL was another one.
So when you were kind of coming up in the scene, was Lourdes like the goal, like that's the crew I'm aiming to be in?
Yes, but for me it didn't take long to get in the crew. But I know there was a lot of people who like that was it. It was just like, I'm trying to get into Lourdes crew. You know what I mean? And that's why it was cool, because that's why they practiced hard. You know what I mean? Like they went hard, like, because there was a goal, there was an end goal.
Awesome. So, when did you get into Lourdes?
In 1993. Lourdes crew had a wall on 9th Street. And
I remember that wall.
do you?
Me and my dad used to drive by and be like, "That's so cool," because you could see it from like the freeway and everything.
Yeah, it was super public. We didn't know what we had back then. I mean, I can't imagine the cool stuff we'd be doing on it now if we had an opportunity like that.
Because that was a huge wall, right? Wasn't it like the Wardens wall? That big, like a big stretch right before Wardens, right?
Like an old ice house or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, like I was kind of writing stuff that is affiliated with Lourdes, but wasn't quite in Lourdes, and then once I did kind of my first real piece on that building, it was just like, okay, now you're down with Lourdes crew. So like I said, I got down with the crew pretty quickly in my graffiti career, if you want to call it that. And yeah.
Okay. So
I had the advantage though of drawing my entire life. I mean, like I knew how to draw comic book characters. I knew how to the whole graffiti style was kind of new. So like I remember when I first started out, like my hand styles sucked. I mean, just bootsy for like, it took me so long to get a good hand style. And then from there, like just developing like letter style and stuff like that. But I always had that advantage of like, I've been drawing my entire life.
Yeah, that's awesome because you had, like you told me, you kind of naturally were drawn to art from a really early age. So yeah, that definitely. But did you, kind of on that same token, did you go to school and take art classes and things like that to further your knowledge, or did you just kind of have this skill set?
I took art every year in high school, and I did take a couple classes at NBC, and those were definitely beneficial. But obviously, you don't learn graffiti style in class, at least unless you're in some cool big city that has that now. It's crazy.
Well, now they have all these different avenues too, where you have like apps on your phone, and you can literally like kind of copy and study and mimic, and you don't have to actually really go out and do it. You can really learn just like on your phone or your tablet.
Yeah.
And those are things that were definitely not available before.
And young people don't understand there was no internet back then, so there was no like we weren't like really following all the artists on Instagram like you are today. Like I can flip through Instagram and see like absolutely like amazing piece after amazing piece, where we were flipping through magazines that maybe we bought from Sacramento at like Tower Records or something like that, and we were flipping through like a bunch of like semi-decent pieces, and there might be like a few gems in there that were like, wow, this person was above and beyond like what we even knew what was possible. Now you flip through Instagram, you're like, dude, that's insane. Like it's just, you're bombarded with like ultra talented artists like at the flip of a wrist, flip of the thumb.
Oh yeah, and what's your take on how much it has changed since you started? Because it has evolved like so much from like simple lettering to now. I mean, it's abstract. It's just all over the place. There is no specific style. It like, you know what I mean? Like pretty much anything goes in graffiti, where before it was a little different than that. Like letters were a lot more structured and things like that. Most of the time things were easier to read. You know what I mean? Some names you could stare all day and not be able to tell what it says.
Yeah. Well, definitely, I mean, from graffiti's like birth in New York, it was obviously super simple. And then coming to the West Coast and, the Chicano aspect of it, with the Old English letters. And there's just, over the years, been so much influence thrown into it. But also with the internet coming in, whereas before the internet, you had a San Jose style, you had a San Francisco or Bay Area style, you had an LA style, a New York style that you could recognize, and for the most part, writers from those areas kind of had that style, where I think now with the internet, like everybody can see everybody's style, and so like it's kind of cool to see artists from the same area have completely different styles now. I think that's what I've noticed the change has happened is like, whereas I would say like 20 years ago, writers from Modesto all kind of had a similar style because they were learning from each other, where nowadays I would say I see writers in Modesto almost all having, very, very few have a similar style. They all have very unique styles. I think that's from the internet and just being able to be influenced by a ton of different people and really just kind of like picking through it like 100 different styles or more and going like, oh, this is what I want to practice. This is what I want to have my style look like and develop from.
Right. And it's, and you definitely see like one artist, have a variety of styles, not just do the same thing over and over again, which is nice to see. Sometimes it can be hard to constantly evolve your style, but those people that can do it, it's just amazing. And you're one of those people. I've seen you do so many different styles, murals, real, very real looking, very abstract. I mean, I've seen you do all over the board, which I mean, I'm amazed by. I can't do that. So you're one of the people that inspires me as far as that goes. Just being able to really kind of do anything. You have just all available at your disposal.
I would chalk it up to where like I can't sit still. You know what I mean? It's like I can't settle on something. It's like once I've done it, I may not have completely mastered it, but like I'm not going to do that again. Like the next time I get a paint, I'm not going to like do that same style. I mean, I will every once in a while, or I'll go back to it later on or something like that. But like writers like Style and King 157 who go back and like they keep perfecting it and you know, like slightly changing things, and like I don't knock that at all. I couldn't do it. Right. You know, even like with the tiger, it's like, yeah, I kind of like painting tigers, but like so many times I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do another animal or something like that. But I think there's pros and cons to both approaches, I guess.
Okay, so you did eventually leave Lourdes, right?
Yeah, I left in 1996.
Was that just kind of you were following your own path, or was that when you were kind of deciding to start your own crew with Gospel Graffiti?
Yeah, it was definitely like a come to Jesus moment in my life, and I just knew I had to like flip my life upside down and shake it, so to speak. And so I left the crew, and I don't think I really realized until even a few years ago, like the effect that had on some of the crew members, and like that they were even offended, you know what I mean? And I guess that's my immaturity or being naive or something like that, you know, my actions affect other people. And I would definitely wish I had like explained to people more of like why I did it, and just so at least they could understand that it wasn't like out of like I hate you guys, or you know, I think I'm too good for you guys, or anything like that. You know, it was just like something that I needed to do for what was going on in my life. And
right.
So yeah,
just kind of, you know, growing up a little bit, evolving a little bit.
Just needed to shake things up and just get a fresh start.
All right, so kind of shifting away from that, who is like a very traditional artist, I guess would be the best, more like a classic artist that really inspires you and inspired you growing up?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I just took art history, so like I'm like I just learned about all these artists, so I'm interested to see, you know, like who inspires you.
Man, that is a really good question. There's a lot. I mean, I'm not a big follower of mainstream art or like classic art or anything like that, but I mean, early on there was like Leroy Neiman. Do you know who that is? No.
But I have Google. I'll look it up.
Yeah. And then what's the guy? I can't remember his name. Norman Rockwell.
Love him.
Yeah, like just his style of character where it was realistic, but there was a style to it, you know? Klimt, you know, was just the somberness to like what his paintings look like. I guess that's a few.
Yeah, that's perfect. And then kind of on the flip side, who was a street artist that really inspired you? I mean, I know a lot of people today don't know of a lot of street artists, especially, you know, like the first person that always comes to mind is Banksy. But there's so many other artists that are so amazing. It would be nice to hear a few of the people that inspired you in that kind of set.
Yeah, like back in the day, like TWS was super inspiring. Estrella and Crayon. Mode 2 was a huge inspiration. Just the figures and again, not quite realistic, not quite cartoony, but somewhere in between. Like that always like was really cool to me.
Awesome. When did you decide to make a career out of your art and kind of shift just from doing graffiti?
I mean, even when, I don't know, when I first, even like painting that first piece on the 9th Street wall, like we would get random people that would stop by the wall, like just crazy people that wanted us to come paint their kid's bedroom. And like some dude one time offered us to trade for goats to paint their kid's bedroom. And I mean, like that in a start is like, you know, just a natural progression of like a career. Like obviously I didn't take the goats. wasn't a good deal for me, but you know, people would slowly be like, hey, will you paint my room at my house? You know, my parents will let me, you know, I'll pay for the paint or whatever. And then it just naturally kind of the ball rolls and you're like, okay, next time I want paint and lunch. Next time I want paint and $100. Next time, you know what I mean? And like eventually you're like, oh, this is a career. I am actually making money from this. But obviously most of my life I've done graphic design, either full-time or part-time, so that I could be, you know, because there wasn't enough money in murals around here.
Awesome. When doing a project like the Yosemite mural that you did, what is the most challenging part of that?
Staying awake. No. That was honestly like not a fun project. I mean, I like how it looks, you know what I mean? That one I did in grids. So I had a printout of the layout with a grid system on it, and then did at least corner marks for the grids on the wall. And with something like that, working that large, like a tree is just a dot of spray, you know. And I would say that like doing that mural, nothing that I learned as far as graffiti art, or what I would say can control, applied to that.
Oh, wow.
Maybe in the portrait, you know what I mean? But for the most part, I feel like an art student that could draw and could probably do that mural as well. Where there's other things that I've painted where I'm using can control. I'm angling the spray can or throwing a color down, knowing I'm going to come back and cut it or chop it off with another color. I think that was the challenge of that mural, is to not use any of the things that I learned in graffiti art for that whole mural, you know. And then it's funny to have people come up and be like, that's amazing that you could do that. And in my mind, I'm like, I didn't use any of the tools in my bag, you know, that I'd like to use.
Right.
Again, I like how it turned out. I'm not
it's
knocking the mural at all, you know, but that was the challenge of it.
Well, I think that's kind of what sold my teacher, is when I told her I'm going to interview. I have this friend and he's really awesome. His name is Aaron, and he goes by Fasm, and he does a lot of murals around town. She said, oh, anything I've seen? I said, you know the Yosemite mural? And she's like, oh yeah, like, yeah, he did that. Mm-hmm. And I told her when you had the art show at, what is it, Chartreuse Muse? Mm-hmm. When you had that big murals going on there, I told her about that, and she was really interested. She's kind of from town but hasn't lived here in a long time, so she's kind of trying to connect back into the art scene. Cool. So she was really, really excited to learn about you.
Cool. Yeah, like another story from painting that mural is, like I said, it was in a grid system, and you just painting brown, tan, and green dots, you know, and that are trees. And I remember painting, and you know, you're focused in on one of those grids, and then halfway through realizing I was in the wrong grid, and I had to like kind of start over. So that's what I mean by like staying awake. Like you have to be like, oh man, just dots and like random shapes and stuff.
Right, a little monotonous, so kind of have to like really push through that one.
Yeah.
Who was your biggest supporter growing up?
My parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. My parents were super supportive. I mean, you know, I got arrested for tagging when I was younger, and they still allowed me to paint in the garage, you know? And I guess I don't know if they were smart enough or kind enough to say like, okay, he's going to do this. We can tell him no, and he's going to rebel, or, you know, try to steer it the right way, which is kind of like my approach to like mentoring young writers or something like that. It's just like, you know, try to steer them. Don't try to like tell them no or tell them stop what you're doing or do, you know.
In the same token, is your son interested in it, in painting and your art and like being like you?
My daughter's been helping me. She's at art school in SCAD this year, but before she took off, she helped me in Indiana at a mural festival there. And then like 2 weeks ago, she helped me on a mural in Oakdale. So that's been fun to get to paint with her. And she's obviously headed towards an art career. I don't know if it'll be murals. She's more of an illustrator, but it's fun to work with her. And Bennett, my youngest, he would love to. I do need to get him out there more and doing some painting. I've been painting at the house now too, so he could tell me.
Do you give him the garage?
The back of the garage, yeah. Guess that's fair.
Right?
Not showing him this video.
Right, don't get to watch this one. What is the largest mural or production that you've done? You solely. I know you probably had, you know, several artists work on very big productions, but something that is just yours.
Probably the Yosemite one. Okay. Probably on Camp 4, yeah. On Needham. I can't think of anything else that I worked on alone that was bigger. Worked on a lot of stuff that was larger with groups of people. Right.
But I'm like, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. Yeah. Okay, so now I'll ask a couple like kind of.
I get asked that question kind of a lot, like what's the largest, and I feel kind of like maybe I should do something larger just to have a better answer.
Well, I mean that's a huge mural. It's huge. I mean, literally, it's big. So I was thinking it probably had to be one of the biggest, if not.
But that's like a thing now too, with murals being so popular all over the world right now. It's like people want to know what's the largest. How big can somebody go? And
well, have you seen? I don't know. I'm like, this has nothing to do with our interview, but do you follow Mad C at all? Have you seen some of her? She does insanely large productions. I'm just like, wow, her murals are huge.
Bit, I think if you follow him, I think it's a guy or two guys, I'm not sure, but they're like way larger than what she's doing even. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's insane.
I can't even imagine.
And the Mac did that one of the old man that was just...
Oh, I think that one's like huge, like a whole building, right?
Yeah,
yeah, I think I've seen that one.
Yeah.
So how many schools in Modesto have you done now? How many schools feature your artwork? Because I know Enoch's, right?
Yeah, and Davis. I would just guess maybe, I don't know, 8.
Oh, wow.
But there's like some in series. Years ago, I did stuff in Riverbank. I've been doing stuff in Oakdale, so the surrounding area.
So you're in all the schools.
Yeah.
And then kind of along the same lines, how many buildings are you
Probably
on?
done more churches, though.
Well...
Like church youth and stuff.
Well, okay. how many people worked on the big Modesto? Because I'd say that's probably maybe. I mean, it's definitely longer than the Yosemite one, not bigger, but it's definitely like the biggest thing in Modesto, and especially when you first see it and stuff.
There was about 14 artists that worked on it from all over the world, really.
Wow.
But I think it took 2 days. I mean, with 14 artists.
Awesome.
But it was one of those hot months in Modesto too, and the people from Canada didn't understand.
What is happening here? And then how many buildings are your murals on? Because like I said, just on my way driving here, I passed 3. 2 of them were cars, like just right here off of J Street. Yeah. But I know, and then like I said, Yosemite, I mean, I know you're all over town. Just everywhere. I mean, when you really get technical, you have your alleyways and, you know, like all the walls that you help set up. So I'm like, I just feel like I see you everywhere.
It doesn't seem like that to me. Because I see so many other blank walls, you know, and so many potential walls that it doesn't seem like that to me. But I mean, really, that's about it, is the ones you mentioned. Like there's the 3.
Kind of the downtown one.
The 2 cars, the Camp 4. I always pass the front of the running iron.
Oh, did you do that?
Yeah, I did that one. And probably most people don't know that I did that.
I didn't know you did that.
Yeah.
So I imagine a lot of people don't know.
But those, and then the front of Enoch's and the front of Davis are probably the most public ones that you could just drive by and see.
Okay, so you kind of touched on this when you said you kind of, you know, were getting sick of like painting tigers, because I imagine, you know, once you paint it and somebody likes it, hey, and then they want to commission it, hey, can you do a tiger, or can you paint a tiger? And so what?
That's more of the goal. I wouldn't say that I have that going yet, but that is the goal of continuing painting tigers, is to like have a thing, you know what I mean, that people know you for, and I guess build up the demand for it.
That makes me think of like Dodie and the birds, or like those faces.
Yeah.
Timber and his little guys. What is your least favorite thing to paint, and why?
My least favorite thing to paint.
And this, you know, if there's nothing you don't specifically like to paint, we could even switch that a little bit and be like, well, what's your least favorite medium to work with?
I mostly only work with spray paint these days. Like, I don't even draw it really anymore. I have like nerve damage in my arm, so like it really is painful to draw. So for some reason, spray can does not hurt my arm. I guess because it's a larger item that I'm holding. But so yeah, anything other than spray paint is my least favorite medium. And was there another part to that question?
I was going to say why, but you answered, because you know your nerve damage, and it's going to be hard to be hard on your limbs there. So you kind of already answered that one. So
you asked what was my least favorite thing to paint.
Yeah, that's where that's where my question started out. Is there anything you really don't like to paint?
Anything that's cliche. And I don't know what it is, but I just don't like painting things that are cliche. It's really hard. Like, I mean, a lot of people will, you know, paint Marvel characters, or, you know, the hot topic of the moment, you know, and that definitely gets likes on Instagram and gets people looking at what you're doing, but I just can't. I don't know. Maybe I'm too cool for school or something. I don't know, but like, to me, there's so much more that is original that can be done. Not that nobody's ever painted a tiger, but like I always try to change up the colors on the tigers and like kind of make it my own.
So, what is your favorite medium to work with other than spray paint? If you had to pick one, what would it do? You do canvas work at all with like
No, I would say like Adobe Illustrator. Like I would say like digital. And I like photography. I don't do much of it lately, but I definitely like photography.
Do you have favorite colors you like to work with?
Lime green and pink and purple.
Those are my favorites
Yeah.
too. Love it. That key line gets me every time.
I mean, I just gravitate towards anything that's like 80s colors, you know.
Yeah, me too. Bright, funky, neon. Give it to me. Love it.
Yeah. and that's another reason for that Yosemite mural that was like...
It's all like almost...
brown tones.
Yeah, it's very monotone.
Yeah.
Well, let's put that. What was the least favorite?
And I have a long-standing theory on that too, and it probably isn't true in your case, but like my friend Cameron, him and I are both like color deficient, so we don't see the full spectrum of colors. So like out of 100, I get about a 70% on color vision, and just from meeting parents of a kid, I stayed with a couple who had a kid that was completely colorblind or almost completely colorblind, and growing up, he would come out dressed with ridiculous color combinations with his clothes and stuff, and they finally realized that he was colorblind, and they let him paint his room with however he wanted, and he chose these primary super bright colors because those are the only ones he could really differentiate. And I think that, you know, it's most commonly in males to be color deficient, but I think people who are color deficient tend to gravitate towards primary colors or brighter colors. That's my theory anyways, and I'm sticking to it.
It sounds right to me. When did you decide to start gospel graffiti?
That was in 1996.
Okay, so it was right about that time.
Yeah, it was right after I was going through changes spiritually and mentally, and becoming a dad. And I met Snow from San Jose, who was previously a Lourdes member. And he was writing gospel graffiti on his sketches. I think he had kind of quit painting at that time. I think he was like a youth pastor at the time, maybe. And so he was sketching stuff and would write gospel graffiti on it, or do little sketches of pieces that said gospel graffiti and stuff like that. So when I met him, I went over there and stayed with him like 2 times and painted at his church and stuff like that. And I think I eventually was just like, hey, why don't I start writing gospel graffiti too, and we'll make it a crew? And he was just like, yeah, let's do it. So that was kind of the birth. It was 1996. And then soon after, I was, you know, getting into computers and stuff like that. So I started trying to form a website for it, and just kept meeting people from all over the world that were shocked that there was other people that were Christians and into graffiti, or had been doing graffiti and became a Christian. So it was cool just getting to meet people from different parts of the world. And with the internet being new, there was a reason to like associate with them, you know what I mean, from a different country. So it was cool in both ways.
Very cool. What's your personal favorite of all the pieces that you've done? Do you have one?
There's probably a few, and most of them are probably on canvas. I realized that like 5x4 is like the largest canvas you can get in like Michael's or Hobby Lobby. And that's I found is like a really comfortable size for me with spray paint to get in enough detail. It's still a little bit small, but anything else would just be like a pain to like transfer. So there's a few canvases. There's one that's a robot with a pink background. That I think I must have done it right when I started using like the newer spray paint, you know, after Krylon and Rust-Oleum, and there's just a lot of details in there that like are kind of like one-time things that like you can't really replicate. I don't know. I feel like I got lucky maybe on that one or something, but it has a lot of a meaning to it as well. And then there's a tiger one that I sold out of Church Key Restaurant from I think last year. That was probably one of my favorites too. It's just like super tightly cropped on the tiger's head. The mouth is open. There's a lot of detail in the teeth and the tongue, the way it curls and flips up, and the colors don't make sense, but they do make sense, kind of thing.
I like your tigers. My favorite, you actually did it recently. It was the geisha. She got painted over kind of quickly, but I really, really liked that one. Cool. I actually went and took, I'm like, oh, I got the pictures of that one already in my phone. Because I went and took pictures because I saw you when you guys were working on that, and you told me, yeah, we're going to go over it in a couple days. It was right before that show. Yeah. So I'm glad I got to see that one in real life, because I really, really liked that one. Cool. The little cherry blossoms and all that. She was super cute. What advice do you have for young artists?
No, yeah, I mean it is. It's just practice. It's like when I was in high school, was just constantly drawing, hanging out with artists. I mean, that's what's hard about growing up in an area that is not super art centric or, you know, considered an artistic community. Is artists need other artists to vibe off of, to get inspired, to push each other, to challenge each other. I mean, I painted for years with Camera One, and there was pretty much an unspoken thing that we were kind of competing with each other. And I don't even know if it was we were so much competing with each other, but we would verbally say like, dude, next time we paint together, we're going to do the coolest thing we've ever painted. And that was like, we would get all stoked and be like, yeah, like let's not just, you know, do something cool. Let's go like the extra mile and do something like super beyond what we've ever done. And I think artists really need that.
Right, that motivation from... How did you feel when you saw him on, what was that, Street Art Throwdown? And he won.
Yeah.
And he was awesome.
Yeah.
So was it kind of cool to get to watch that and be like, yeah, that's my
totally.
boy, you know?
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah. I was really tripped out when you were like, yeah, Cam One's coming, blah, blah. I was like, I know that name. And then I'm like, hey, I know Jared. I'm like, okay, that's the guy who won. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, super proud of him. I mean, like, because when I first met him, he was terrible. And he knows it.
He's watching it. He's like, yeah, right thanks.
And just hanging out with him, and I think I had a big influence on him. And, you know, at first his style kind of gravitated towards mine, and then obviously now we've totally kind of separated our styles. And in a lot of ways, he's surpassed me in certain aspects of doing murals and the business side of it, and you know, so that's really cool to see. You know, like somebody that I had a lot of influence on just go super far in their career.
Since you say that, and I was actually going to say that earlier when you were talking about how you and him were both color deficient, and because of that, you both kind of I know you gravitate toward the bright colors, but he also does.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I see a lot of the same kind of color schemes that you like to use in his work, which, again, I love those color schemes, so
Yeah.
I'm very drawn to those as well.
Yeah.
How much time do you devote to your art every week?
Oh man. This is kind of embarrassing. Not a lot. It depends on week to week though. It's like if I have a project going on that week, it could be like 3 whole days, but like some weeks it's, a few hours a day and that's it.
But I'm sure that's come with time though too. I'm sure when you were younger you were out there just hitting the pavement running, what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Back in the day, it was just like all day, every day, hanging out at Poesia's house, in high school. If we had a legal yard like the 9th Street wall or JTL wall, we would be out there all the time. Anytime that we could scrounge up enough money to go buy some Krylon at Walmart or something.
Story of my life. So before you started doing like street art, did you work with any other mediums before that, or were you always kind of just drawn to that?
No, I definitely one was sketching, colored pencils, Prismacolors, doing painting in art classes and stuff like that. So yeah, I can use a brush if my life depended on it. No, I definitely did a lot of acrylics. Never did too much with oils or watercolor.
Oh, it's so hard to work with.
Watercolor is definitely the opposite of spray paint. Layering wise, it's complete opposite, but super intimidating for me.
I hate it.
like locally, if you look at Dan Peterson's work, just phenomenal. I think it's probably one of the most talented artists to ever come out of Modesto. But would I attempt to do anything like that? Heck no. It's super intimidating.
I think I just have one more question. Oh, no, two. Okay, so what has been your favorite place to travel for your art and why?
Ooh. Probably New Zealand. The artists there were super inspiring. I've always wanted to go to New Zealand. Just for the scenery over there and the animals and the forest area and stuff like that. But also the culture's super rad over there. And then the TMD guys, I was super lucky to get to travel around with some of the TMD guys and go visit other TMD guys that are just phenomenal artists and hear their stories and stuff like that. Yeah, New Zealand was awesome.
That sounds awesome.
And there was no agenda. I wasn't there for a job or anything like that. We only painted twice in 1 week, and it was just super casual.
All right, so this is actually my last question, and it's maybe a little bit of a thinker. Did you think that art would take you where you are today?
I think I had pretty high expectations for myself. I think from a young age, I got a lot of kudos for doing art. And I did think, from an early age, I did think I had something. You know what I mean? Okay, I got something here. So I think I had, pretty high aspirations. and maybe that's what's driven me all these years. But definitely getting to travel and meeting artists and stuff like that has just been absolutely amazing and mind-blowing. So I don't know if that technically answers the question, but
it definitely does. And with that, I think that's a pretty good summary of Mr. Aaron, Mr.
Awesome.
Fasm.
All right. A bunch of people came on here. I didn't talk back to any of them.
Sorry, guys. I got to do all the talking. I got to do all the listening.
Cool. All right. I'm going to sign off on this.